Welcome to Speaking Cinema, serious movie Jibber Jabber, a movie podcast coming to you from a quiet planned community in Orange County, California. Listen to us Jibber Jabber every single Monday, Stitcher, iTunes, SoundCloud. Follow us on our social media platforms. You know where they are at. If you like what you hear, you're so inclined, give us a rate, review, subscribe. Do what you gotta do. I am your host, living the quiet life, Mr. Jibber Jabber. With me today, as always, our unseen phantom, Kevin. Hello, Kev.
Woo!
Who are we? Speaking Cinema. Talk about a movie, then we watch the movie, we talk about it again, having had seen it, for a contextual conversation about our favorite topic, movies. It's all that's fit to podcast. Movies.
Truly is. No knitting podcast here.
Not yet.
There's knitting podcasts.
Are there?
I've heard of them.
I bet for the knitting crew, that's
I bet
they've been
bet
aching.
it's fascinating.
They've been aching for it. From a dimension beyond the living, a terror to scare you to death. This time on our Jibber Jabber, they're here. 1982's Poltergeist, continuing our celebration of the summer of 1982 and what it meant to cinema.
Yes.
Written by Steven Spielberg and Michael Grayus and Mark Victor. Directed by Tobe Hooper, asterisk.
Allegedly.
Asterisk. And starring Craig T. Nelson, Joe Beth Williams, Heather O'Rourke, Dominique Dune, and Oliver Robbins.
The pride of Spokane, Washington, Craig T. Nelson.
Oh, is he now?
He's from Spokane.
Is it? Listen, I'm going to say this, and if you're offended, that's okay. He kind of looks like he's from Spokane, Washington.
It's true.
Distribution by MGM. If you're not familiar, a family's home is haunted by a host of ghosts. Thanks, IMDb.
A host of ghosts.
That is a great synopsis.
That's just fantastic.
Brainchild of Steven Spielberg, who wrote and produced Poltergeist. What was going on? He was Spielberg, El Spielbergo, prepping E.T. for Universal. Cause in his contract said, you can't leave. Once you start prepping it, you can't leave. So he started producing Poltergeist, something that he was going to have, a potential project for his that he didn't want to see just go to waste. So he's like, I'll produce it while I'm prepping E.T. Okay. Gave it to Tobe Hooper, famous for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and really nothing else. But, in Life Force. I can't actually say that. Life Force. They're going to collaborate, make this movie, right? You got Steven Spielberg, master of disaster. Tobe Hooper, master of horror. Fucking, how can it go wrong? Controversy. It is said that Tobe Hooper did not really direct this movie, and that Spielberg, in his producer role, had to step in and take control due to alleged substance abuse problems on the part of Hooper.
Ooh, boy.
Co-producer Frank Marshall told the Los Angeles Times that the creative force of the movie was Steven. Tobe was the director, and he was on the set every day, but it's Steven's movie. And after the movie came out, Spielberg put an open letter out in the Hollywood Reporter. He took like an ad page out. That was trying to dissuade this rumor. He said, hey, we collaborated, and I'm sorry that, this message gone out here. Tobe Hooper, you're great. I love you, blah, 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 blah. But in years since then, actors have come forward and said, hey, like, I wasn't taking any direction from Tobe Hooper. I was taking direction from Steven Spielberg.
Wow.
He was there doing stuff, getting stuff done. What's your take on this, Kev?
It takes an army to make a movie. There's a lot of voices going on. And it's hard for me to think of Steven Spielberg as just sitting back and being a producer and being on set every day. Like, how does his natural instinct not kick in to, like, just do the movie? He's, like, the guy who wanted this thing made. How is he not just going to step in and just do the movie he wants, Why put it in the hands of some other guy, basically, who's only made, allegedly one good movie in his life. Texas Chainsaw.
First of all, that's not allegedly. That movie's fucking great.
It is great. I'm not saying Texas Chainsaw Massacre is allegedly good. I'm saying he's allegedly only made one good movie, and that's Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
My retort to your statement would be that, a man can wear multiple hats. Maybe he's just wearing his producer hat, right?
He can. Now, keep in mind, Steven Spielberg has not been in the game too long at this point.
At this point, right? 1982.
He's done Jaws, obviously a huge smash. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, The Sugarland Express, and Duel are like all of his credits up to this point. He's about to explode and set his whole career with E.T., which
also came out this summer.
It also came out this summer. he might be doing it. Is he the most powerful guy in Hollywood yet? Maybe not, but it's like he knows he can do it. Basically, the man made Jaws. But yeah, he's not like big time Spielberg who knows everything about the industry and is like one of the most powerful people. So is he going to wrestle away some power? He might. He might not know how to wear that producer hat versus the writer hat versus the director hat. Yeah.
Well, the thing is that bolstered by the fact that Hooper, in the internet forum logic, Hooper never really went on to do anything with the studio, right? So that bolsters the claim, like, oh, he must have not directed this, or he must have been a problem on the set because he never got to go to the big show ever again, right? Hard to say. I do think it is true based on the fact that I think Tobe Hooper has admitted or talked about the fact that he did have substance abuse problems during that era.
I mean, it's the early 80s. Who didn't have a substance abuse problem?
Well, Spielberg apparently, because he got shit done.
Me, because I wasn't born yet, for God's sake.
And then the fact that everyone, like all these randos years later, are just kind of admit to it, it kind of makes you think that there's credence to this claim, right? Now, does that matter? Is the question. It matters to Tobe Hooper, it matters to Steven Spielberg, it probably matters to some financial people, their agents, their managers, people who get a cut of the money and all this stuff, right? To you and me as fans, does it really matter?
Ultimately, no.
Right.
It shouldn't. We can speculate about it, but in the end, as we always say, do you like this movie and does it work? It's like, isn't that what we're ultimately striving for?
Right. And at the end of the day, marketing-wise, produced by, directed by Tobe Hooper, Steven Spielberg. So it's Tobe Hooper, collaboration, Steven Spielberg, right? That's what's getting us to come. If Tobe Hooper produced a Steven Spielberg movie, it would be a different movie, execution-wise, of course. But for us as the audience, the selling point is the fact that they just put their names on the poster.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't really make a difference as to who, if one of them wrote it, if it's the same movie and one of them wrote it or produced it or starred in it or whatever, we're still getting their names, right? Their names is the selling point.
Exactly. And it's, if they really want, if there wasn't any bad blood, why wouldn't he just put like a co-director credit on it? Who knows?
Well, that might be getting into some guilt stuff. Another group who might have a problem with this whole thing. But as fans, I don't really care.
Exactly.
As it is recording, you can find this movie streaming on Xfinity, which I believe is a cable platform if you have Xfinity cable.
That's Comcast's platform, which we do not have here in Southern California.
But maybe wherever you are,
country,
you got it.
Eastern Washington, you got Comcast. I could go on.
You could, but what I'll say is you can rent or buy this on your favorite digital platforms. iTunes, Amazon, it should be up everywhere.
Disc readily available.
Discs, yeah, they exist. Get it.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm sure you can buy this movie for like 25 cents on Amazon.
I bet you can.
Kev, have you heard of this movie? What do you know about it? What are your thoughts?
I have heard of it. Seen the poster. Saw the remake. We saw the remake for free. We saw the remake.
Mm-hmm. Together. You and me.
Yep. We saw it together. I have never seen the original Poltergeist.
It's fascinating, Kev. Kind of let you know on a secret. I have also never seen the original Poltergeist.
So how both of us miss out on this one. I feel like everybody knew about it, and of course, there's the famous line of like, "They're here, and this house is clean." And
the simple answer is, it wasn't airing on the USA Network. This is the time where I think
your childhood TV was just affixed on the USA.
I would
Golden Girls reruns and Conan the Barbarian.
Kev, I'm not joking when I said I would watch whatever, and then when I was going to turn the TV off, I would click channel 42, because what number it was.
Oh, yeah.
42, okay, good, turn it off. That way when I turned it back on, it'd be on it, so just in case.
There you go. Next time the Road Warrior's on, or Spy Game.
And it's one of those things where I remember seeing the box art. The box art was the staticky screen with the girl.
Yeah, which that's great box art. Very, very cool image.
At the Blockbuster and the Hollywood Video. I never rented it. It was one of those things where I was always like, oh, I want to get this, you know what I mean? But, convincing people to watch a horror movie, it's just tough, It's like, and you think that would be one that you could convince people of, because it's
not
so
rated R, is it?
No, it's so known. You know what I mean? It's such a known entity. Well, when it gets onto, I feel like back in the day when it got onto VHS, it didn't really matter what it was rated. It just was it cool or not? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I mean,
but I'm saying it wouldn't be hard to get it from a video store if you were a kid.
no, it was rated PG. Famously rated PG before PG-13 became a rating, and the content in it was supposed to be very extreme for a PG movie.
Yeah. Which
Which is in direct contrast to the remake, which is like a baby fucking movie.
Absolutely.
You know, so do you like movies in this genre, like a haunted house movie? We talked about haunted house movies a little bit in Haunting episode 21, but what are your thoughts?
I definitely love haunted house movies. You can do so much with it, you know, and I always like the idea of bringing, you know, a terror to somewhere that is thought to be safe, which is why I like Halloween, the holiday, and the movie so much. You're bringing this vicious terror into what's suburbia, you know, which is
Right.
the ultimate removed from the evil of the city and the world. It's the burbs. And, you know, you can do a haunted house in a few different ways. You can do, like, actual specter, you know, ghost haunted house, or you can do something like Halloween where it's a killer in your house, or like Last House on the Left where it's a bunch of hillbilly rapists in your house. Stuff like that.
I do like haunted house movies, but and I think keying off what you just said, right? This is not a killer's in the house, a ghost in the house. But most ghosts in the house stuff is bump in the night, right? Like,
Yep.
you know, like The Haunting, right? It's like the door bulges, there's weird noises, there's scary things. But this is like a big effects-driven movie, which I'm very excited to see that, because I don't think I've ever seen a haunted house movie that's really on that level, right?
Exactly.
I never saw like 13 Ghosts or the Ninth Floor or whatever, which I feel like tried to do that in the 90s.
Yeah.
This
It
is
was bad. They really tried to push CGI, which was not ready to be at that level that they tried to do it.
right.
At,
So I'm really excited for this and to see where this goes, you know?
it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Tobe Hooper, we kind of alluded to the fact that we're not the biggest fans of his.
But boy, do we love Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I really want to see Life Force. I've never seen Life Force.
I don't know if I've even heard of Life Force.
It's alien vampires that take the form of a naked woman who sucks the life force out of you.
Sounds cool.
A canon film. And then, I mean, nothing he's done really. I've never really gotten up too much for him.
I know he burned a lot of bridges making Texas Chainsaw Massacre. A lot of the actors said they'd never even work with him again.
Oh yeah, the guy Leatherface has a book. The guy Gunnar Hansen called Chainsaw Confidential, which is about the making of it and just how, you know, they were like, I think in Austin, and they just made a movie. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
and like people were talking in that book like, dude, like we just didn't know we didn't know that you could just get PAs to come and, you know, that you could just, hey, put a thing in at the time, right? Put an ad in the newspaper saying we need a PA, and he just holds a big, you know, like a fucking fan, like a la like a pharaoh, and he could just fan the set. You know, we just didn't know, so everyone just suffered through everything.
Yep. Well, the famous one is the guy who is like the grandpa.
Yeah.
He only wanted to wear the makeup once, so they had to shoot all of his scenes before they take the makeup off, and it took 24 straight hours
Right.
to shoot all of his stuff. So,
You know, and then,
vicious.
and yeah, it's just like they did a scene where he's like, Leatherface supposed to be like chainsawing a guy, so they just cheated with the camera angle and they're chainsawing the wood table. But if you've ever used a chainsaw, you know that if it catches something in the wood, it'll buck in a way that you can't control no matter how strong you are. So it's like they're chainsawing inches away from a guy's face.
Yep.
And you know, Leatherface, the guy who plays Leatherface, is like, dude, we all just went crazy.
Yep.
You know, we just lost it.
But does that make that movie great?
No.
Do you think? All right.
No, because if you found out all that was fake, it wouldn't change how crazy that movie is.
True.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of movies that are irresponsibly done, the marketing is that you can feel how irresponsibly done this is, right? But I think, like, I didn't know anything about that movie when I saw it, and it's just crazy.
It is.
You know what I mean? You're just like,
To this day, it's still crazy.
right.
You know?
Act responsibly, people. That's my 2 cents. I got nothing else to say about this movie. I mean, you know, we've waited over 30 years to see it, because it came out a couple of years before we were born. So, I mean, shame on us. So let's go make penance and
let's right or wrong.
yeah, let's see this movie.
Let's dive into that TV.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Here we come.
Into the TV.
And we're back.
We're back from the spectral world. We have returned.
Kev. Taking a look at the horror classic Poltergeist. That has not changed. Where, when, and how did you see this movie?
It's an interesting day we were supposed to have to see this movie. We were going to go to Griffith Park for a outdoor screening of this movie. Sure enough, El Nino comes around and hits us with a bucket of rain. Power at my work goes out, and I'm in charge of gotta take care of the server room when the power goes out, and then reboot it when it comes back on. So we got delayed, got all messed up, but friend of the show Emily came through, got the movie on Blu-ray,
Right.
watched it in my house.
We did. It was a day of just startling defeats. We were gonna go, three of us. One guy bails. Your work has the power outage, and we can't recover.
Yep.
Very disappointing.
Plus, it's wet and cold outside.
Well, I feel like it stopped raining.
You really wanted to tough it out.
Well, here's my whole thing. It was raining at 2 p.m. The movie's at 7:30. By the time we got to 4 p.m., it wasn't raining at all.
It's true.
And socks and a scarf on me, you'll be tip top.
Yep.
But what can you do?
We had a good time watching it at my place.
That being said, when I watched it, I was not in a good mood at all. And the volume on the Blu-ray was very low. I know that the PlayStation don't have issues with this, but
But that one, I mean, I've got the volume settings where it lowers that range a bit, and then on other Blu-rays it's just fine on that. So that Blu-ray in particular had a huge audio range. And
Right.
I just could not figure out.
Right. Consistently low. I'll at least give it that. It's not like it went up and then down.
Yeah.
It was consistently low. And also, the special features on that Blu-ray were bunk as bunk. Even if you love this movie, I mean, unless you just needed to own it, you can't pay top dollar. It was 2 documentaries about fucking paranormal, real, and when I say real, I mean it in deep sarcasm.
Yes.
Real paranormal investigators.
Yeah.
So
yeah, if you want to hear people with pink hair talk about a ghost experience they had, so they wanted to become a psychic, by God, those documentaries are for you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, disappointed.
Although we did learn that 3 out of 4 people believe in ghosts, which I think explains, at least, if nothing else, the interest in this movie.
Probably 3 out of 4 people they talk to.
Now, I believe that 3 out of 4 people believe in ghosts, because people believe in ghosts, and it's very strange. So, to get right into this movie, what's interesting is that the movie starts mid-scene, right? Everyone is laying out. There's the Sergeant Stripes Forever on the TV. Everyone's laid out. The dog's going around to every room in the house and checking in on everyone, and then the girl is like, they're here or whatever, and then, or they're coming, or whatever she says, some creepy shit, and then we're right into the movie, which is crazy. To me, that was crazy, because there is no preamble, really. We're just kind of in this. But Kev, getting into this, being the podcast, what did you think of this movie overall? Never seen it. I had never seen it either.
Never seen it. I could see if you watched this as a kid that you'd be nostalgic for it. But as an adult seeing it for the first time, this movie belabors every single point, ad nauseum through the whole thing. And I found that grating on my viewing enjoyment of it. Every single thing it alludes to, all of its themes, certain scenes play out multiple times. It's just kind of a slog to get through, and I did not find it very enjoyable.
I will say that I think the beginning of the movie is really well made in terms of setting up a suburban kind of an active suburban environment, and then some stuff happens, and I think the movie, once you get to the paranormal investigators, I think the movie really slows down too much to a point, and then it gets kind of lost in itself.
Totally.
And I will also agree that
the climax happens about 20 minutes too early.
Yeah. And I will also agree with you that overall, I think for a little bit of a different reason, overall, I don't love this movie, and I think that a lot of nostalgia has carried it, and I think that it's not a grand masterpiece a la other movies we've talked about in the summer of 82, like Conan and Mad Max, which I think are legitimately just powerful filmmaking. I think there's a lot of scenes a lot of stuff that's done really well, but a lot of stuff that is not done well. And let's get right into it. I want to talk about the filmmaking.
Yep.
And so this movie, very known for its effects, a heavily effects-driven movie. Kev, do the effects hold up?
Anything that is blue screen onto the film does not hold up. I don't think. There's that Bobo tornado. I'm not giving you any slack, Spielberg. That tornado looked bad. A lot of the just like paranormal effects are on par with like the evil ghosts in Conan. Look like they're just drawn on to the film. Just don't look like they fit.
The first ghost that we've seen is especially atrocious.
Yes.
There's the one that does the MGM lion roar at the end. That one looks really good.
It looks good, but that MGM roar is too iconic to just throw into that scene.
Right, yeah.
For me, it was really distracting.
I think that's a little bit of like Hollywood cheese.
Exactly.
You know, it's just like...
But it's like, that's so obviously the MGM lion roar, you know? You don't have a whole library full of lion or tiger roars that you could have picked any one of them.
And I think when they go into the kids' room and all the stuff's flying around when the paranormal investigators
oh boy.
That just did not look... It just didn't look the same. It looked like it's a 3D effect. Like, you know what I mean? Like, whoa, exactly. Kind of thing. And
it looked like it was rendered on, you know, an Atari. It just doesn't look... It doesn't look even like you can touch it or it's even in the same universe.
Right. And I don't... It's not like... Sometimes things don't have good effects and, you know, you can forgive it or you can... It's not okay. I just don't think that this movie... I just think that there's a lot of pieces, but they don't all fit together.
Yep.
And I think knowing what we know about the background of it with the problems with Tobe Hooper and stuff, I think that a lot of that comes down to it's like someone else directing a Steven Spielberg movie instead of making like their movie. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and I just think that, I think that that's like a scene that's a kind of like a round square and a round peg in a square hole.
Yep. A round square, huh?
In a peg hole. Huh? There is I think design in terms of filmmaking. I think that there's like an example of this. It'd be like show that when the mom falls into the pool, which is a great scene. Everything that comes after what I'm about to say looks really good, right? And that's the thing is that we're focusing on the negative things, but there's a lot of things that look really good. So when the mom slips into the pool, it's like kind of caught in this weird like. It's like a master shot, and then it cuts to... She takes a step backwards in the master towards the pool, and we cut to a close-up of her feet, and you see her slip and fall in, and then she falls down from the shallow end to the deep end. And it's like... That just feels like... Let's just get the coverage, and it's just like... There's no, like, thought into, like... You know, if it was, like, a shot over her shoulder, and she's running, and then she turns, and then you don't see her foot slip, you just... All of a sudden, she's out of the frame, and then she's, like, at the bottom of this thing. It just... There's just that little thing of, like, you see her, like, okay, take the step back.
Yeah.
And you're falling. And then she falls, you know. It's just... There's that little bit of, like, lack of magic in that thing. But then she falls in, and then all these coffins come up, and then all these skeletons come out, and that really works, you know. Ultimately, I think it's like a cake that's not baked all the way through. It's chocolate cake. I can't really be mad about it. Because, like, you know, it's chocolate cake. But, like, just as far as chocolate cakes go, just so we're all on the same page, this is not the best one I've ever had.
Certainly I've had better chocolate cakes.
Yeah, but it is chocolate cake. But and then there's things that are in the filmmaking that are really good. Getting away from effects, let's go to, like, all of the exposition, except for the exposition spoken by the little lady. You know,
Oh,
that's all terrible. But there's a really good... So, like, the little wiener kid is like... Oh, this tree is scary, and he's like, well, the tree has been here ever since before my company built this place. So I mean, you know, so it's like that's a good little effect, and it's a believable scene with a kid where he's like, well, the tree's always been here, little Billy, and we're the new ones, right?
Yeah.
And it tells you that the dad works for the company that built all these things, and we have not seen him selling houses yet. And then later we see him, he's selling houses, and then there's a really good exposition when they go where the boss comes and visits him because hasn't been to work, and the boss thinks he's going to quit, and he's like, I know you're upset because you sold 60% of the houses in the whole development community, whatever. We didn't make you partner, and we should have, you know. And it's like that again is an exposition scene. It shows us a lot about the movie and the background and stuff, but in a way that like someone would say that, right? If you thought someone was going to quit, you would admit that you fucked up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even if you didn't think you fucked up, you would admit that you fucked up to keep him to stay if you want him to stay, right? And then he's like, you know, you could have your thing here, and then you reveal that this fence is not just an arbitrary fence; it's for a graveyard, which is that shot's a really good matte painting. And then they're like, he's like we've done it before, and he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, this all used to be a gigantic graveyard. We moved it all down the road. You know what I mean? And again, that seems like an expositional conversation that someone would actually have.
Yeah, as opposed to 5-minute long monologues about the paranormal.
Yes.
That just don't
Which
go anywhere.
come later when little munchkin lady comes and she's just like, your baby is alone, but there is a monster. And it's just like, I'm going to need you just to fucking talk like 30% faster.
Come on, little munchkin.
Don't go to the light.
I know she's got the slow southern drawl, but
goddamn,
that was a grating experience.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, what's also interesting is that there's no flashbacks or nothing. Everything, we start in the middle of a scene and we just go forward. Yeah. And I think the remake version starts with them moving in.
Yeah, it starts very much because he's in the remake, he's out of a job,
right,
and is trying to find a job, and just moves him into this presumably a cheaper house than what they were living in.
No, it was that he moved for a job and then they laid him off after he moved. Like they wanted him to relocate, and he's like, "I'll be a team player," and then they laid him off when he moved. So now he's on the hook for this new house. His old house hasn't sold yet, but the bank took it back or something, and so now he's just fucked. Which I think is a good premise. That movie, though,
that shows you how much I don't remember that movie.
Also, I mean, as much as we're soft on this movie, seeing this movie realizes how just much of a fucking piece of putty that last movie is.
Totally.
That last movie
was
as
generic as it gets.
It's just a movie where they're like, we have to remake Poltergeist because we don't want to lose the rights, but because we want Steven Spielberg to come back for this Legacy sequel, but we don't know what to do.
Yep.
And we don't want to just redo everything literally. But also, that fucking tree, the limited movement on that tree is just... And again, like, I think there's a lot of scenes where you can see them editing around stuff a la Conan, a la Mad Max, where you edit around your limitations. Like, the tree starts eating the kid, and then the dad's climbing up the tree, and he pulls the kid out, but we don't see him pull the kid out. You just see them both falling out of the tree. Yeah. So your mind thinks, oh, he pulled him out, and then... The force of pulling him out, they both just fell out of the tree. And there's really good, like, wind machine rain combinations where, the mom is, like, stuck, and you believe it. Like, dude, that wind is crazy.
Yeah.
But when the tree grabs the kid, it's like two gigantic sticks.
Yep.
Just slowly. And the kid's like, no, don't grab me, no! And it just does not work at all.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, I think it's not as artfully done as it is in Mad Max.
No.
Like, these edit hides. You're cutting right from the shot of him, like, reaching to them falling. And there's no purposeful cut to kind of get in between of that to make it a little more believable. It's like...
Where he's grabbing the kid's hand or something?
Yeah, it's like you just didn't get that coverage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But and it just, I don't know, every scene just feels long and belabored in this one. Like, there's the whole thing with the canary dying. Or the bird. And she's gonna...
Listen, if you want to call it a canary, I'm not gonna fight you.
There you go. Yeah, you bird podcast people, I don't want to hear it. So she gets the bird. She's gonna put it in the toilet. Kid's sad. They put the bird in the box. They give it a blanket. They give it a flower. They give it a fucking thing.
They give it a red vine in case he gets hungry. It's like, have you been giving this bird red vine? This bird's dead because of you. That's probably
why that bird's dead.
Birds can't eat red vines. That's a fact.
They have the funeral. And then they show...
It can only eat Twizzlers. Go ahead.
They show the construction people who are building the pool. They show them tearing that part up. And then, like, the bird's coffin is pushed away. And all of that is only to serve as, like, a preamble to what was actually done. Where this company just put over graves. It's like, did we need this 5-minute faux cutesy scene to do that? And I just don't think you do. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of moments in this scene, in this movie like
but
that.
There was but I think salvage out of that moment is at the end, the kid's all brokenhearted and my fish is dead, and then at the end she's like, can we get a goldfish? And then you cut to them having a goldfish. And I think there's a funny moment that comes out of it, but I get what you're saying, where it's like, she's not doing the Lord's Prayer, she's doing the Enter Sandman prayer.
Yeah.
And it's like, Enter Sandman prayer.
Yeah,
And he's like, yeah, there's a lot. And then the older sister makes a comment, and it's like, there's just a lot going on. None of it is shot particularly interestingly. You know what I mean?
And then there's the part, Craig T. Nelson and all his buddies are watching the LA Rams game, and then the guy next door changes the channel, which somehow their TVs are linked. I don't know if that was an 80s thing.
Yeah, it's an 80s joke of like this new fangled contraption, the remote control doesn't really work. And it's like, it's like, so we have this back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
And then
my kids want to watch Mr. Rogers. My kid, we're watching the game in here. And it's like, you know, and it's supposed to be funny. And to a certain level, it is funny.
But it should ultimately establish something, right? Like maybe the neighbor could help out, like with the paranormal thing or with the TV. Like somehow, you don't just want it to be a hollow joke if it's going to be that long. It should just eventually pay off somewhere, and it never does. That whole sequence, it's not that funny, and it has no story payoff. It's just long and hard to maintain.
Mm-hmm.
That's what she said.
But I mean, I think at the same time, filmmaking wise, there are some good little details. I think one of them is when she falls into the pool that's like, you know, full of mud and zombies.
And real skeletons.
There's the pool light that you see because you know pools have a light in the deep end. And that pool light is just kind of hanging there because they've like, and then as things get more and more fucked up, it starts swinging back and forth.
Yeah,
and I feel like it's a really good little
cool.
detail. So I feel like this movie is full of little details, but also full of big tangents and full of it's just like it's inconsistent. You know, it's a real rocky road.
Yep,
and not delicious like Rocky Road, but just shitty like a rocky.
Like
road.
driving on a rocky road with a bad suspension car. You get there, but it's not pleasant.
Right.
I think an effect that does work is when the poltergeist starts pulling the kids and then like the mom at one point, that room is just on like a gimbal and they're just rotating the whole set, and I think that gives a really cool vibe.
Oh, so when they're sliding across the floor and then when she goes up across the room, yeah.
That's just really smart, like camera placement and then bolting down certain things so that they don't move at all. Like, she has loose boxes of stuff, and however they got that to just sit there and not move at all, that's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And that's a neat effect, and again, it's all in camera, looks great. And then you get these Bobo computer effects that don't look good at all.
Are they computer effect? I think this all predates computer effects.
I mean, yeah.
So, like, they're probably, like, comp shots or whatever. Yeah. I think one of them that works is when the dad is pulling the rope, and then that big gigantic skull comes out of the closet. Yeah. It's like, that really works.
They got a lot out of just some flashing lights, some smoke machines.
Okay, let's talk about this. Let's get into this because we're kind of talking about the horror, and that's something I really wanted to talk about. Is this movie scary?
To 30-year-old me, no, it's not that scary. But there are some intense moments in it.
I think there's some.
I could totally see a kid being terrified of this.
Sure, and there's some good horror imagery. I think there's a really good horror imagery at times. You were just alluding to whenever she's communicating through the electrical signals from the TV to the ghost, and they'll show the little girl and they'll show the flashing light of a static screen on her, and that is a scary image because it is like dark in that room, and then you're just getting the strobe effect. Yep. And it really, you just feel like there's stuff hiding everywhere. It just gives you that dread of darkness, you know?
And then there's the scene where they're pulling the rope, and all it is just like a strobe light. But it gives this really unsettling vibe in the room, a really unnatural look to it. And that's cool. Like, they can do so much with so little, and that's why it's frustrating when they resort to effects that just don't work.
And speaking to the inconsistencies of this, so in those scenes, darkness is true darkness. But then when we're in the little kid's room, especially with a little wiener kid, like, okay, Mom, turn off the light. Turns off the light, and now it's like 80s dark. Yep. Where we turn off the yellow light, and now just the blue lights are on. So we can see everything in the whole room. We can see there's no darkness. There's no absence of light. Yep. So it's like there's not, and you could really, I mean, you know, fucking, if you listen to the sound of my voice right now, you have been in a dark room with patches of lights coming in through a window, coming off of this, coming out of that. You know what I mean? Coming out of a clock. You know, and those illuminations make it scary because you can see this corner, that corner, and the bed, but everything else is where all
Yep.
the monsters are. You know what I mean?
It could be anywhere.
And I feel like they understand that in some scenes, but not in others. And it's baffling.
Yep.
But I mean, it speaks to just making a mistake. But it speaks to just not having that comprehensive vision. You know what I mean? But I just don't understand that.
Yeah, it's there's just a lot of logic issues, not just in the story, but in the filmmaking of you're so effective doing it this way. Mm-hmm. All you have strobe light and a smoke machine.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like you just put a rave in the house. It looks like this terrifying.
Mm-hmm. You open the gates of hell. Yeah.
And then you have these really bobo creatures, and it's a strange movie. It's strange.
I want to talk about two great jump scares that really work, and they're in the same scene. So they're in the kitchen. The mom is bitching to the kids like, "How can you guys ever? You guys are always moving these chairs around to tuck them in." So she comes in. The chairs are like a little bit out from the table. Just like a foot away. She's like, "Eh," and then you see the little girl's hand come up and grab the back of her shirt. And she screams. She's like, "Did you move these chairs?" And she's like, "No." She puts the kid up on the counter, goes and gets something from the cabinet, comes back. The chairs are all stacked, right?
Yeah.
And she screams again, and she's terrified now. She's talking to the kid. Both those times, those are ostensibly jump scares, right? They're kind of boo moments.
Yeah.
But there's no music clash. There's no. Chugga! You know what I mean? There's no.
The music doesn't come in until after the scare has happened.
Right.
Especially in the stacked chair scene.
And I feel like that is the way to do a jump scare.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I think you can probably have one or two musical jump scares in the end of the movie. You know what I mean? But I think with the rest of it, anything before that, just do it silently.
Yep.
And let the audience be the ones who scream. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I just thought that those were really done really well.
Yeah, there's definitely moments, and that was a cool effect too because that's all one continuous shot. So it's chairs are out, there's the pull on the shirt, she moves the cabinet, and it's just one quick pan over, and it's a really smooth edit, and it's a really smooth shot, and that just makes it work that much better. The chairs don't make any noise, because in a modern movie they might do you hear the chairs doing it. They don't do that at all. That just makes it that much creepier, So that's cool.
Yeah, and there's no anticipation put on that scene, right? There's no scary music where it's that tone that's that prolonged tone, where it's just held, on an organ or whatever, and where you're something's gonna happen, something's gonna fucking happen. It's just you turn around and it's oh shit, you know what I mean? Which I don't know. I just think that was a really well done effect, but
you could have done it through the whole movie though. That's just what makes it so frustrating for me. It's the talent is there and the skill is there, but it's not there all the time.
Yeah.
They weren't on every day on set. I would guess.
But what wasn't on?
Just mentally, they weren't. Some days they just absolutely knew what they were doing, and some it just looks like they fixed it in post, basically.
Yeah, and I just feel like there's a lot of the small things work. There's a scene where the first time the tree comes in and grabs the kid, the closet gets a really bright light, and I feel like that really works.
Yeah.
You're talking about when they're in that same room, and when the mom goes to the other side, there's just a strobe light and some smoke, and that really works. Every time she opens the kid's room after the girl's been taken, and you just hear screaming, she closes it and it's all gone in a very unnatural way. I feel like that moment works. And everything is moving on its own. The chair's moving on its own. The coffee pot moving on its own. The steak moving on its own. Those all feel really good. It's when you see. It's when I think it's things like the tornado that don't really work. I just think that
it drags it all down.
Yeah,
and that's unfortunate. So it's not like in Conan where they can get away with a couple Bobo effects because
that snake was Bobo.
I like the damn snake. I like the snake.
That snake was made from the same special effects company that made that tree.
It might have been, actually.
We don't know what we're doing. Here you go.
But you're so kind of enthralled in the filmmaking and the characters that it doesn't really matter. And in this, in terms of the characters, I hate all of these people. I do not like any of these characters. I especially hate the Chode kid.
Wait.
That kid is a joke.
I want to get into the family dynamic, and I will do that with you in 1 second. I just want to end this by saying there's a scene where when Craig T. Nelson first talks to the paranormal people, and a lot's going on in that scene, but there's one thing he says where he's like, events that we hear, he's like, we hear laughing, we hear scraping, we hear music, we hear stomping, we just want our daughter back or whatever. And I'm like, I want to be there for all of these scenes.
Yeah. Why would you just toss that off in, again, just like exposition scenes, Did they forget to shoot it? Did they run out of money?
Well, and I think, they're trying to make it like a kid's horror movie, and I think that sacrifice in that, pursuing that, you know what I mean?
But like, what kid wants to just hear that told to him instead of showing stomping and screaming? Like, kids are just going to latch on to those effects, whether they're good or not, or whether they're placed into the story or not. A kid is really, they want to see like, the thing moving, or like creepy howls and stuff like that.
Right.
Like that, they want to see that. And to just have Craig T. Nelson toss it off, that seems disingenuous too.
Okay, the family dynamic. So this is a story of a family and their kid going missing and all of that. Did the family feel real to you?
I hope not, because this would be a shitty family. But no, they didn't feel really real. I don't know parents this irresponsible, and I don't know any kids this annoying.
I think the mom character really works for me. I think she's charming, and I think there's a real sense of her. You know what I mean? Like when the kid's sliding on the floor, you know what I mean? She's just like, yeah, like what the fuck's going on? Like I don't, this is our home. Nothing. We've lived here. I'm not afraid of what's happening. Probably assuming that it's like, electric feel. Whatever is going on in her mind. I just feel like that character is the only one that is fully realized. Maybe second is the dad, because he's a little bit more distant, but
he's very distant.
Yeah,
as just a dad and just a character. He feels like he's always somewhere else.
Well, and I feel like there's one in the first half of the movie, particularly in the nighttime scene. There's a lot going on that makes you feel like this is real, right? Where the dad's explaining, like, the tree's been here for a long time, you shouldn't be afraid of the tree, that how lightning works, like, you see the flash and then you count the seconds, and that's how far away it is, you know what I mean? Like, those moments feel real. They're smoking weed. Yeah. That feels real.
Yeah.
Once the fucking shit hits the fan, they turn all of that off.
Yep.
And I think that's a real problem in this movie. Like, the mom upset being the bird is dead. You couldn't have died on a weekday. It's like I think that feels real, but I think once the first attack happens, they stop with all the parent shit,
and it really pivots to the paranormal people who are not very interesting.
See, and I completely agree with that.
And there's 3 of them. It's like, how could you not just have one paranormal expert? Like, do all like one paranormal expert and an assistant at the most. We don't need 3 of these people running around.
Well, I think what happens is the movie really hands itself over to them. So you have the main lady, and she's kind of like the main lady. And you have like the black guy with the mustache, and he's really the assistant. And you have the other guy, and he's the one that washes out. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But they're really passing the movie to them. And then the parents are there too, and then they really don't know what to do with the other kids. I really think that how suburban this feels comes across, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like everyone has Star Wars everything. There's Darth Vader posters, Star Wars toys.
The whole vibe, I mean, it's a very Spielberg vibe, just in that opening scene of, you got the Jerry Goldsmith, like, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da music. And, yeah, it's just, there's kids playing, there's people watching football, there's lawnmowers. It gets that suburban vibe without really forcing it.
Okay. So, even though she's a great supporting character and how they do it is good, I think the eldest daughter is the most interesting character, right? She's the one who, when the paranormal investigators come over, she's just bawling. It's all too much for her. You know what I mean? Whatever. And we spend no time with her. She's the one who gets flirted with the...
with the construction people. And then the mom's just like, oh, you.
We'll get to that in 1 second. But, and I know you're with me with this. That fucking... middle child, the boy, is a goddamn wiener kid.
He is a chode.
He is a chode. And I'm not being facetious, and I'm not being like nitpicky. This is not for nitpick section. I really hated that kid to the point where him on screen became like, I just don't. I will fast. There's a scene we're talking about where it's like, I'll just fast forward the scene in the future where when she's talking, the mom's talking to the paranormal investigator, and the kid wakes up and is like, if I die, can you tie a rope around me so I can go get my sister back from the other side? It's just like, I just can't deal with this kid talking. He's just the worst.
Or there's the part where the first ghost comes down the stairs.
Yes.
You know where I'm going. And this whole thing happens, and they're watching it back, and he goes, "Is that our house?" It's like, where the fuck else would you think this is?
Can we get this kid out of here?
And then they do, and they send him on a taxi by himself.
They send him with a dog.
with the dog. It's like, the dog's not going to protect him or buy him food. These people are the worst.
If that's your least favorite quote from him, mine is, "Mom, a big storm is coming. What do you want her to do? What's she gonna do? She gonna fucking, your mom can change weather? Grow up, kid.
Yeah,
sleeping in your fucking LA Dodgers hat."
Yep.
Get the fuck out of
sleeps
here.
in a hat. I don't know. Yeah, that kid, obviously we should always, in this story, you really do, it does require you to feel something for the family, and so you cannot have kids that fucking annoying, or parents that irresponsible, or just, I don't know. There's a lot of moments there where I was like, I don't care about these people. Mm-hmm. I don't care if they live or die or their house explodes or they're trapped in the netherworld, because I just don't like any of them. They're like the worst kind of suburbanites.
Is there anything else that doesn't work for you in this movie? And I think, I'll kick it off with, like there's a scene where the pool guys are digging up the pool, and then they're flirting with the daughter when she gets on her bike and she's in her school uniform, and the mom just laughs this off. And I'm like, I would accept that scene for how it is. If the mom saw because the daughter flips them off.
Yeah.
If the mom saw the daughter flip them off and is just like, that's my girl. Hey, you motherfuckers!
Yeah.
You fucking want to flirt with my daughter? You know what I mean? How about I fucking kill you guys? Like, if she came back at them like she's like, it's funny that my kid flipped them off. I'm proud of my daughter, and then it was just like, hey, you fucking perverts. You know what I mean? How about I come out there and cut off your dicks and bury you in this hole? That would make sense to me. But she's just like, 40-year-old men wanting to fuck my 13-year-old daughter or 16-year-old daughter. Hilarious.
Yep. And that's kind of where I turn against the mom in this movie.
I don't blame you for that, because that is not explainable.
It's a weird vibe from everybody, and they don't feel like they care, and they're kind of just caught up in all their monetary stuff, and I just don't care about anybody. Mm-hmm. And then another thing I can't stand about these people, I took 2 separate notes, but they mean the exact same thing. When they're eating breakfast, I wrote down, these people eat like hogs. They're disgustingly eating people.
Just wharfing down those Eggos.
Wharfing down, shit getting on the floor, feeding it to the dog. And then, the daughter has like a bag of chips in her bed, just lying out.
It's pretty savage.
God, that's gross. And then there's another scene a lot later. I can't remember. I didn't take the exact time it was, but I wrote, these people eat like Neanderthals. And then I look up, I was like, oh, I noted that earlier too. So on 2 very separate occasions, I had to note, these people eat terribly.
Well,
that just makes me hate them even more.
The whole everyone in this movie's relationship with food is bizarre. There's the paranormal investigator guy, the guy who gets bit. He's eating Cheetos out of the old school Cheetos bag, and it's just gross. And then he goes in, he's like, I'm gonna go eat something, and he grabs the steak and a chicken leg, and it's like, whoa. Did you bring that steak, bro? Because if you're eating their steak, that's
colossal. Move.
Kev, we're friends, but if I was like, help yourself anything in my kitchen, intrinsically, except for that steak, homie. Except for that steak. Not the steak.
And he just puts it on the counter. It's just on the counter. Put it on a plate. Something.
Put it on the grill. Put it on a pan.
He just puts. The whole. It's very distracting. All the food stuff. Like, it should be frivolous. Like, just whatever. But it is distracting how sloppy everybody is and how they treat food.
Yeah.
It's gross. Hogs, Neanderthals, chodes.
When do you think this movie started falling apart for you? I'm not sure when it did for me. Cause I feel like if we liked this movie, we wouldn't give a shit about any of this, right?
True, but yeah, I think it's I think there's the guy's catcalling the daughter, and then after the first paranormal scene, I was like, okay, here comes the meat. Like, here comes the really good stuff. And again, just all these long scenes.
Failure to deliver after that. I think you're right. I think if you deliver in that scene, then retroactively everything else works.
Exactly.
And I think the failure to deliver in that scene doesn't.
And then nothing really gets paid off from all that beginning stuff. I think we noted, 41 minutes in is when kind of the shit starts getting down.
Yeah, a really long first act.
So that's a long time to be spending with these terrible people who don't know how to eat. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, we get into the paranormal investigators. They really drag the movie down, and it's just it just hurts those good scenes. Like the whole thing with the rope, I think is good. That's just like a really suspenseful, emotional scene. But it takes such a long slog to get there, spending time with people you don't really like, that it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And so it was. I can't define one moment where it really falls apart. It's just a slow build of this is annoying, that effect doesn't work, these people aren't interesting, this plot point's going on too long. It's just that long. It's like nail on chalkboard. So it's a slow build up to me just not liking this.
And I mean, I hate to be this guy who watches horror movies and says this, but they expressly say that they have not gone to the police about this.
Yes.
And I just feel like in today's...
Another reason to not like these people.
Well, I just feel like, not even in today's day and age, but in the modern era, that just sounds... If this all took place in 48 hours, I get that, right? Where they can't leave the house, or the daughter disappears and then they're locked in the house, or
phone lines cut,
something like that, right? Or they're isolated in some way. But this seems to have gone on for days or weeks, and it just doesn't add up. And I'm not sure if that's because it's really not about a haunted house, if it's really about the idea if your child ever gets kidnapped, whatever, you know what I mean? I don't know if that's to serve a greater master. I just feel like I hate that. It's just why? Why wouldn't you tell the cops? You know what I mean? And
you don't get a sense of urgency. Their daughter is in a paranormal universe, and they're taking this long time to even do anything about it.
And they go, and when the scene when they go to the paranormal investigators for the first time, I feel like they gloss over that, right? Where it's our daughter's trapped in this thing. No one's addressing that. We haven't gone to the cops. No one's addressing that. And then my wife's 32. My daughter is 16. It's
do the math, people.
Wait, what? So
pregnant at 16.
And how old are you, fucking Craig T. Nelson? Because if you're 50, this is a different movie.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, that scene's kind of blown over by either. I don't think it was by design, just because it's not really paid off later. But if they kind of just glossed over, thinking oh yeah, my wife. How old would a suburban wife be? 32. Okay. How old would a daughter be? Probably 16? Yeah. But then not thinking about what that says about it. That, the mom got pregnant at 16. That's a really early age to get pregnant, and that's a whole story right there. And just kind of throw over that, I think, is just a lack of detail. Not
that's the thing.
what
What's worse? If they didn't figure out the math on that, or if they did and didn't talk about it?
I think if they did and didn't talk about it, that's worse. So, because if you don't sit and think about it, it doesn't matter. But when you really start putting the pieces together, it's fucked up. It just makes you dislike them even more.
Mm-hmm. So we never see the other side, which I'm okay with conceptually. I just feel like there's so much in this movie after they go to the other side that it's why not? And then they even comment how the daughter doesn't remember any of it, but it's but you remember it, right? Basically and also there's a lot of implications to everything that's happening here. It's I feel like if you're a Catholic or Christian little kid, this movie makes perfect sense to you. But if as an adult, especially as someone who is that doesn't believe in those things, it's so God exists then, right? Because the dead go somewhere, and we actually have souls, and it's a thing that we have, and thing that you've seen other people's souls, and they're all dead, right? So there's no implication here. Like, hey, proof of the other side.
Yep.
Amazing.
As again, just glossed over.
It's a glossy movie in the worst way.
In the most 80s way possible.
Yeah. So this is a PG rated movie.
Where a guy tears his face off and reveals his skull in a vision that he has.
But I really don't see it as that scary, and it's probably because I'm an adult. You know what I mean? I think also
it's not scary, but it is. There's some genuinely, like, I wouldn't. A kid would be traumatized by this movie, and maybe that's the whole vibe they're going for. Is that, like, this is supposed to be the scariest kids movie ever, and maybe that's why it's not really latching on to us as adults, because all a kid would see is just a kid getting terrorized by this unspeakable force and not being able to do anything about it.
Right.
Like, if you're a kid and you're seeing somebody your age or similar age getting that done, then that's really scary.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just not that terrifying if you know anything about horror or seen other horror movies.
Right.
It's like a starter horror movie.
It's a good start. Yeah, it's a good starting piece.
It's that, the shitty car before you appreciate the good car. Your first car.
I think so, and I just think that before we wrap it up, I guess we could talk about why people love this. But the last thing I want to get to is there is a strong anti-capitalist message here, where they've developed land that used to be a cemetery, an old cemetery by design, right? And they didn't, it's like they're just cheap. They just move the headstones and not the actual coffins, and this all happens because of that. What do you make of that?
Again, they don't really pay anything off in it. It's not. They don't say suburbia is bad, or that companies are bad. It's just this company was bad one time, and it doesn't really do anything in the story to kind of just tell you. It doesn't take a point of view. Is basically what I think, and not that this movie really needs it, but. If they were trying to get any message across, it didn't really come through. So I think it's just easy to do the big bad corporation and then give them a reason why this house is haunted. Because you can't just say a house is haunted. It has to have some reason to it. So
I guess so. And
just yet another aspect of this movie that is strange.
Do you think does the ending work where the house gets sucked into the other side and
then the whole neighborhood is just like possessed now?
Oh yeah, there's definitely things that gonna affect that neighborhood, and then they just
get the hell out.
Yeah.
Again, these people are terrible. They just leave their neighbors behind.
Well, you gotta look out for number one, homie. And also that does speak to suburban, because like this movie takes place in 81, 82, coming out in 82. But, like, by the time, I remember in the 90s growing up in suburbias, I don't know if suburbia was ever like that, where all the kids are hanging out on the street and whatever. When I got to suburbia, it was all about keeping property values up and people just wanting peace and quiet, thinking that they're living in the country, but they don't want to live in the country.
Yeah.
Because living in the country sucks, too. So they're living in the suburbs. So it's not the city, which they hate. It's not the country that they hate. It's the suburbs, which they also hate, but it'll make them a lot of money one day.
Yep.
So I just feel like this movie captures a suburbs that I've never experienced and I'm not sure even exists.
It's just, that's a very cynical view of
sure
of what
I've been called worse.
I'm saying in general, not that you're a cynical person,
which I am.
He is. Yeah, it's just people are just existing in a hollow pursuit of money, and I don't think this movie really explores it, but that you do get the vibe of that suburbia of like you don't really want to know your neighbors or like the kids in the neighborhood. Now it shows some of that, but yes, I don't know. It's hard in a real world to put that kind of like, oh, this is what the suburbs are. Because I grew up in the burbs, and I had a lot of friends close by, and we went to the park, and we rode our bikes, and we had our hangout spots. So it's not like we lived isolated lives, So I think it's this idea of suburbia from people like Steven Spielberg's level who don't live in the suburbs, they think that's what the lower class is like. Or
lower middle class.
I would even say American Beauty is a lot like
that. Upper lower middle class.
Of like, this is a British director's view of what they think American suburbia is like, and it just really isn't. So,
let's get into some nitpicks and some moments of awesome before we wrap this up. Do you have any nitpicks?
I think I've covered mine pretty well. Just that kid's a chode.
I say my two nitpicks are flushing a bird. Like, lady, what are you doing?
Yeah,
like,
come on.
That's it's not a goal. It's not a fish. I mean, like, and also it's like if you flush a fish that big, you're just asking for fucking plumbing issues. And I get that your husband is tied to the company, but I mean, you know, do you want to be dealing with raw sewage in the middle of the night? No,
you don't.
Also, raw sewage, gross, such a gross term. And then fuzzy toilet seat covers. Just
The worst.
we don't need to get into why they're so bad, but just
They're terrible.
they're terrible. And the only thing that's worse than a fuzzy toilet seat cover is the fuzzy toilet seat mat,
Oh, no.
which is not in this movie. So to their credit,
Always just little dribbles of pee.
Any moments of awesome that you would want to get into?
I like the word. Let me pull it up. I like the word psychotronic energy.
Yeah,
That just has a rhythm to it.
that
It
is
sounds
a-
like a Cramp song.
yeah, that's a band.
Psychotronic energy.
The guy on the bike with 24 beers, that guy has a DUI.
And he's also my hero. What a dude.
The kids play a prank on him, and he wipes out his bike, and he's like, "Gotta save the beers."
Save the beers. They're spraying everywhere, but yeah, that dude, he's a real champ. And yes, he has a DUI. That's what I think anytime I see anybody on a bike, any adult.
When the daughter, so they solve all their problems. The house is cleansed, so the daughter's gonna stay with her friend until they're done packing up. And when she comes back right as the house is imploding, she starts freaking out, and she has a very noticeable hickey on her neck, and her boyfriend has a Trans Am. That's a great moment. That is a great moment.
That is clever.
I like that. The button joke is great at the end, where they go in the hotel room. The button is at the end. Like, They go in the hotel room, everything's over, and then the dad comes out with the TV. He leaves it on the.
Yep.
That's good. And there's more diversity in this movie than in the remake.
That's true.
One black guy.
There's exactly.
Only person invited to the suburbs.
A net number one diversity.
Yep.
So
that's. Oh, and then I guess a noticeably Irish preacher in the other one, but I don't count that.
No.
So in the end, do you like this movie and does it work?
I don't like this movie. I would never watch it again. I am glad I finally saw it just to see. It does. It's kind of getting the nostalgia back, but I think nostalgia's kind of moving to the 90s now. But I don't enjoy it for all the reasons I just stated. And I just would never want to submit myself to watching it again. So I don't think it works.
I think I did not like it. I know I didn't like it. Does it work? Hit and miss. I think it's rough. I think that it would have been interesting if we saw it in the park with a bunch of fans of the series and seen what they cheer at and see what they scream at.
Yeah.
I would watch this movie again in the context of a big screening. I wouldn't watch it with 2 or 3 people. I want to watch it with 50 to 100 to 300 to 1,000 people. You know, like when they do cemetery screenings, I want to watch it there and see, are people screaming at this? Are they scared? How do they feel about it?
Or is it like a picnic and they're just talking to each other?
Right.
And then that I think that's a good measure of any horror movie too.
Well, I don't know about every horror movie, because I think there's some stuff, especially like foreign stuff, that wouldn't work in that scenario.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't watch The Grudge, with a picnic crowd. You know what I mean? Or like Suspiria, or you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that would work. But American horror movies, yes, right? Because like, hey, we're all here to have fun. Let's see what's going on. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So why do you think this movie has its legacy of just being the best?
As we kind of touched on, I think a lot of people watch this as kids, and I think it is a movie designed to appeal to children, which is fine. I think it's like way too scary to actually it's too graphic for like a PG, and like you could really mess up a kid with that face tearing off scene. But you know what? A lot of people watched it and they turned out okay. But yeah, I think it is very much targeted at kids, and they'll always have like. We're both fans of terrible movies from our childhood. And it's just because we watched it all the time and we enjoyed it, like no matter what. And I think a lot of people just had this in their library and watched it, and that's why it stays with them.
Yeah, I agree. I just think that and if it's yours and you have it and you hold it in your heart, that's fine. You know what I mean? But I do wish it worked broader than that. You know what I mean? Like. Everyone feels that
those
way.
are really the best overall.
Right.
It's just, it works both as you could come in any era, it's a good movie. But it holds an even closer place if it's nostalgic. But this, I feel, is just pure nostalgia, and that's, to me, is always fleeting.
Right.
You can only go so far. It doesn't let new people into it.
Right.
It's like, oh, back in '82, this was the shit. It's like, well, it's not the shit anymore because it sucks.
Right. Well, I mean, look at like Wizard of Oz, right? It's like that's a movie from everyone's collective childhood, but it's also a good movie.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's like, I wish this was more like that. I wish this was more of a good movie. I don't think there's a good movie underneath the nostalgia.
No, absolutely not. There could have been, but there's not.
Mm-hmm. Sequel pitch? You got any sequel remake ideas?
These people drive off a cliff and go away forever because I don't like them.
I think the idea of the kids, I think you could do multiple kids taken away. I think, and I think it especially works with girls conceptually, right? But I like the idea that, like, so you have this idyllic thing and then this bad thing happens. And I like the idea of, if you want to get, like, real genre with it, it's like, you bring in kind of like an X-Files vibe where it's like, the police don't think that they did it, and then the FBI comes in, they're like, we have a division that's dedicated to this, that, like, it's kind of like a secret thing, and we go to the other side, and we as the audience see it. Because if we as the audience go to the other side and see it, we don't need it, the other characters don't need to talk about it, because we can assume that they already did.
Yeah. You could do this in a college, too. Like, what if a whole college campus was haunted? Then you get, like, if all the kids are off to college, then you kind of get some college tropes.
Oh, and that's actually really good, because then it's about the fear that you have when you leave the nest.
Yeah.
Where your parents aren't there to help you. Ooh.
That could be interesting.
And then you can talk about, like, so you have some people living in a dorm room, and it's like, you have a nightlight? It's like, well, my mom used to leave the light on in, like, the hallway, and it was just, like, a thing, and I don't know, I just find that I'm better off sleeping with that, and you could pervert these things.
Yeah.
Kev, that's a fucking great idea.
That could be a good movie, right?
Get your writing cap on.
Steven, call me.
No. We're doing this ourselves. No. Don't, Steven Spielberg, do not call me.
Unless you're bored.
Yeah, well, unless you want to hang out, bro. But not for this. That's it for this episode. Please come back and join us on our next episode. Follow us on Twitter at Speaking Cinema. We're here on Stitcher, iTunes, rate, review, subscribe. This is Jibber Jabber every single week. This episode written by me. Me? Did I write this one?
Yeah, you wrote this.
Oh, okay. Music by Jeff Russell. I'm your host, Mr. Jibber Jabber. That's me. Kev.
That's me.
You are also here. Hosting duties. Put you on there. As you are every week.
I try.
See you next time.
I don't try, I do. Eat with some manners, for God's sake. Eat with a little class.
You're better than this.